Okay, let's do stakeholder analysis using Mendelow's matrix. Now, Mendelow's matrix specifically applied to uh, the Mersey company wala scenario. ठीक है? A comprehensive stakeholder mapping and engagement we'll have to understand. Now, there are so whenever we apply the Mendelow's matrix, there are two aspects that we judge or that we use to classify our stakeholders. Can you tell me what those two aspects are?
For internal stakeholders and external stakeholders.
No, 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 no. That is not
Okay.
Mendelow's matrix classification.
Sir, interest and power.
Yes, we talk about the level of interest and the level of power. Okay. And so depending on the amount of power they wield or the amount of control that they have, power and interest are the two parameters that help us to classify stakeholders into four categories. What is power? Power is the ability of a stakeholder to influence the organization's decision, strategy, and operations, whether through ownership, regulation, or commercial leverage. Like holding company has the power to control the subsidiary because it has more than 50% shares of the subsidiary. Talking about interest, the degree to which a stakeholder cares about the company's outcomes, encompassing financial returns, ethical conduct, content quality, or operational continuity. Basically, we are trying to gauge कि यार how much can you control, how much power do you have, and how deeply are you affected by the entity. Okay, so we basically break this down into four quadrants. Key players, these are basically those who have high interest, high power. We have to manage them closely. Okay, then we have those stakeholders who fall in the high power low interest category, who wield a high amount of power but who are not so intimately affected or who are not financially impacted by what is happening in the entity. You have to keep them satisfied, you have to monitor the performance and maintain the relationship, but you don't have to make extra effort. Low power but high interest stakeholders are those who need to be kept informed, and you have to engage with them on regular basis through appropriate corporate communication. And then of course minimal effort, these are those stakeholders who neither have a high interest nor do they have a high power. So the low power low interest stakeholder fall into the minimal effort category. ठीक है. Now, Mersey operates in a highly interdependent ecosystem spanning investors, regulators, commercial partners, and content creators. So, here, I think what is important for you to know, see, when you look at the ownership and governance structure, you have institutional shareholders who have 60% holding, you have directors who have 30% holding, and minor shareholders who have 10% holding. Right. There is the regulatory body called NMSA, which regulates content accuracy, ethical conduct, and public protection. Then there are commercial partners like your advertisers, digital platform providers, paper suppliers who basically help you to conduct your business. And then you have the readers, subscribers, in-house authors, freelance writers who basically read the content that you are producing. And and we read at one point that they are trying to basically promote a or they are trying to build a community culture. So this is that category. Okay. The key players here are your institutional shareholders, the directors who have 30% holding, the regulatory authority, and advertisers. These stakeholders have significant influence and have a deep vested interest in Mersey's performance. Mismanaging any of these relationships could trigger material consequences for the business. Institutional investors, they control. So they hold 60% of the company. So basically, what they say is what the company will have to follow. They prioritize financial returns, dividend stability, share price, and ESG performance, engage through transparent reporting and a clear digital transformation roadmap. So, these are stakeholders who have a very close one-on-one impact on the basis of what is happening in the company on a daily basis. And they believe in certain principles like financial returns, ESG performance, share price, and that is ultimately going to drive the company performance. Okay. Company needs to keep them satisfied at all times, and you have to manage them on a regular basis. Any lapse of communication with them could lead to long-term impact. ठीक है। Directors, they have strategic operational authority. They also have a 30% holding, which means the changes in the share price of the company is going to impact them. Point one. Also, because they have a certain amount of control, they have a certain amount of operational authority, things they run the company on behalf of the shareholders, right? So they have been appointed by shareholders, so they have that power. Plus, now that they have a 30% holding, I think the financial success of the company impacts them deeply. And their expectation is that the governance processes should be strong, you should have committees, and there should be succession planning for the directors. ठीक है. The regulator is also, see, the regulator has huge amounts of power. If the regulator finds any non-compliance, or if it is not aligned with certain points that the company has in mind, then, or the way company is conducting the business, if it does not fall in line with the rules and regulations, they can impose fines, they can investigate deeper breaches, they might lead to closure of the business or temporary suspension of license with the regulatory body. And then you have the major advisors, which is basically a critical revenue source with the power to shift spending elsewhere. The directors of the company do play an important role, and the major advertisers, see, directors to play an important role, but इन सबको जो पैसा आ रहा है वो कहाँ से आ रहा है? Shareholders don't invest money on a daily basis. उन्होंने एक बार invest कर दिया, that money has to remain. You have to keep on churning that money. But for running the business, you have subscribers and advertisers. Advertisers pump in major money. Plus, advertisers also control the narrative. If they don't necessarily align with the way your company is doing business, they might shift the advertising to another entity in the same space. So again, they yield a deeper influence and they are also financially impacted. So these are four key players who need to be managed closely. ठीक है. In the keep satisfied and keep informed category, you have, see, keep satisfied category is high power but low interest. ठीक है. The digital platform providers understand one thing, that digital content is shaping this particular industry. ठीक है. So if digital platform is shaping this particular industry, the providers of the digital platform, they yield a high amount of power. Print media is going out of circulation. They have, they hold the reins in this relationship. So you have to keep them satisfied. They might see, they might be providing these services to 50 other publications, but so for them, the financial interest might be low. It might be restricted only to the fees that you pay them. But one wrong step with the digital platform provider and your entire online business could crumble. ठीक है. Then you have paper suppliers, essential for print operations with commodity price exposure, secure long-term agreements, and ensure sustainable sourcing compliance. See, paper suppliers, why do they play an important role? Because, see, why do they yield high power? Paper is a critical resource for print publications. If you don't have paper, naturally आपका magazine edition will not come out. Plus, see, right now there is more of ESG awareness happening in this particular environment. So there is a possibility that the price of paper might go up, because uh, they might want to create an impression कि we are using paper sparingly, so the price of paper might go up. It is essential for print operators, because without that you can't work. If there is an increase in paper price, then naturally the entire unit economics will get affected. It will help to secure long-term agreements and ensure sustainable sourcing compliance. Large retailers are those जिनके shop में your goods, or sorry, your magazines are being sold, and if they don't function effectively, your magazines will not reach the end customers. So right now your revenue depends largely on the functioning of these retailers also. ठीक है. Now, how do you tackle the third category, which is the keep informed category? These are people with low power but high interest. I mean, people look at your, I mean, people wait for the next edition of your magazine. So they have high interest, right? And there are people, who are extremely particular about what they read. So if the magazine quality is not up to the mark, for example, there are grammatical errors, there is something about content quality which is not right, they might switch to another. competitor, right? So they are deeply impacted, the readers and subscribers. The employees and editors also play an important role. See, employees, the financial success of the company directly impacts the employees. And the editors, again, even their job depends upon the financial success of the magazine. So, employees and editors again play a critical role. Followed by freelance authors. Freelance authors might be specialists, but their income, their revenue also depends upon this particular and depends upon the success of the magazine. So they come under the keep informed category. Now, your minimal effort quadrant is basically your minority shareholders, your retail shareholders basically who hold 10% interest in the company, and the general readers who require only standard reporting unless a controversy arises that elevates their interest or influence. So जो आपके शेयर होल्डर्स है या जनरल पब्लिक हु माइट रीड योर मैगजीन once in a while but who are not regular subscribers of your magazine, उनके केस में you are not required to make any substantial effort. Just let them be. Now when it comes to these different stakeholders, there could be stakeholder conflicts. ठीक है. Now I will mention the I will mention the two stakeholders. You try and explain how does the stakeholder conflict arise. The first is shareholders versus digital investment. So see, the digital approach to which is shaping the industry right now versus the shareholders, they might be at odds with each other. Institutional investors who form 60% of the overall shareholding in this company, they might be of the opinion ki yaar, we don't care for a long term investment, we want immediate returns, so we are not willing to invest in technology. Versus the fact that digital investment might be required by another set of shareholders who feel that in the long run digital is the way to go, so they might be at odds with each other. Okay. Then advertisers versus editorial integrity. Advertisers seek positive content alignment and brand safe environments. The regulator requires accurate reporting. The board must balance commercial pressures with ethical and legal obligations. ठीक है. Advertisers, they want money. So they are like, कुछ भी advertisement करो, just get people to sign up. Now, when we talk of advertising, you know what so many ACCA coaching institutes also do, right? They promise you the sun, the moon, stars, and everything. इतने का job मिलेगा, उतने का job मिलेगा, so on and so forth. That's not going to happen. So, see, companies want revenue, so everybody is chasing that target. But there is certain integrity when the editors are sitting in that chair, so they would want to balance it out with some amount of realism. Platforms versus strategic autonomy. Digital platforms command high distribution power and algorithm influence. Merce must diversify its channels to avoid overdependence. A single algorithm change could dramatically reduce audience reach overnight. So, while the digital platform is the way to go, too much dependence on these digital platform providers could break the autonomy that you have. And see, what if they decide to not push your content? One change in the algorithm at the back end will limit your reach immediately. So that challenge is always, going to be there. And readers versus the paywall strategy. Readers expect affordable, accessible content as digital subscriptions grow, but company needs revenue, so they might increase the billing for online digital reading. Now the challenge is that, see, when people move from digital to so from print to digital, they expect to pay a lower amount per month. If the company, in order to maintain its revenue, hikes up the मतलब if it hikes up the per month billing or something, then it might throw that entire relationship out of hand. ठीक है. So the behavior of or the planning of the company with respect to how does it want to navigate the different stakeholders, there might be a question on this at some point in your paper. ठीक है. इस पे काफी बार क्वेश्चन आता है, so should not be surprised if something like this actually shows up in your paper. ठीक है. Now let's move on to an important aspect, which is the risk management part. ठीक है. We look at the COSO ERM framework, we look at a risk register, then the TARA response matrix and financial sensitivity analysis. ठीक है. Now, when it comes to risk management, see, आपका you take up any paper at P level, at least three papers where it is very clear. One is AFM, one is AAA, one is SBL. All the three papers have a question section dedicated solely to risk. यहाँ पे there is COSO ERM, there is board level risk register, TARA response, sensitivity and integrated risk diagnosis. Now the COSO ERM framework. Can you tell me the elements of the COSO framework? Five elements are there in the COSO framework, right? Can you tell me those? Shubh,
Sir, I actually don't remember them.
no problem. It's not a typical memory based paper. तो याद करना is not so important, or rather not important at all. One is governance and culture, then strategy and objective setting, performance, review and revision, information and reporting. Now, see, culture is, as we have discussed, it's not something which is tangible, but it shapes how the organization is going to function. Now, when I talk about the culture in this aspect, we have to realize that culture is often defined by how the top management plans and reacts to situations, right? So the tone is set at the top, and the same has to flow throughout the organization. So, if from a risk management perspective, how aligned is the organization with respect to its perspective on risk? I think there has to be an understanding that, see, having independent non-executive directors provides you that kind of insight which will help you to balance out the power equation. Okay, you have created a risk committee which shows that the company is proactive, it is more and more aligned towards this. Then you have the published ethical code and CSR commitments. That CSR commitments and this aspect specifically highlights कि देखो, company suo motu on its own account without having those compliance pressures is planning to work in this direction. Plus there is awareness about the regulatory obligations. When it comes to weaknesses, the risk appetite that we are describing here is, see, if you look at the risk wala part which is given towards the end of the pre-scene, the statement is described same as sector. वहां पे एंड में लिखा है कि the risk of the company is more or less similar to that of the sector, which means you have not really paid attention to, are there any factors which are unique for the company? Maybe they are not a sector specific problem, right? You don't have a formally documented risk analysis done, and there is potential cultural tension between print legacy mindset and digital transformation imperative, which might have a deeper impact when it comes to the further success of the organization. The risk governance structure is there, but risk appetite is not very clearly defined. How much is the company willing to take on? ठीक है. The board should consider formalizing quantified risk tolerance levels aligned with the company's digital transition strategy. ठीक है. You need to define how much risk are you willing to undertake. Strategy and objective setting. Mersey operates at the intersection of a declining print market and a growing digital environment with an advertising dependent revenue model that amplifies strategic exposure. The key strategic risks arising from this position include structural print decline. So, there is a shift right now from the print media to digital media, and your core revenue might have been in print media earlier. What it signals is that the company, it knows here the world it belongs to digital, but there is a possibility that the company is not yet ready to tackle the challenges faced when you are moving to the digital world. So that could lead to further erosion of revenues. Then from a risk perspective, see, COSO is a risk management enterprise-wide framework, right? There is platform dependency for the digital audience, and it increases the reliance on third-party algorithms. You are at their mercy. If they don't want to push your content, it will go down. Then increasing digital footprint increases vulnerability to data breaches. And then, of course, the ESG exposure part, which is climate related, supply chain disruption, and stakeholder expectations. The company is saying that it is aligned on the ESG front, but with the Aam Janta becoming more and more aware, and their emphasis also moving towards, an ESG friendly entity, naturally the company will have to be on its toes, and one small misstep could lead to reputational damage. ठीक है. The challenge is that you are moving from a familiar zone, which is print media, to a completely unfamiliar zone, which is digital media. Maybe not completely unfamiliar, but your dependence on that is increasing. And what if, you don't have the cybersecurity network, or you don't have adequate platform mechanism to tackle all of that? So that is and at this stage, you need to be very clear ki how will you handle this aspect. ठीक है. Then the company will have to come up with, and it will have to classify the risk into different categories. And of course, the risk interdependence is quite high. One event, say one small digital disruption, could have financial impact, operational impact, reputational impact, compliance related impact. So these are the seven categories within which we can basically split our risk. ठीक है. Have a look at this once. देख लो. ठीक है. Cool. Now, see, all of these risks are closely connected. Poor content, low quality, or non-reliable or unreliable content, reputation damage. Once the reputation gets damaged, there is reader and subscriber loss. Advertising revenue will decline if readers are not coming to your website for reading, and ultimately it will lead to profit erosion. ठीक है. Right now, the good part is that you have established committees, and there is a functioning risk committee that undertakes periodic review of the risk landscape, which is a positive feature, right? But there is no scenario planning that the company has done right now, in the sense कि you don't have any analysis given to you कि ये situation हुआ तो what should be the planned response, or they have not visualized multiple situations that can go wrong, and they have not put together uh, that aspect कि यार ये गलती हुआ तो how are we going to tackle that. ठीक है. They don't have alternative solutions available in case if there is technology disruption or if freelance writers leave. कोई भी scenario they haven't described. ठीक है. No stress testing. Financial stress test essential for understanding downside exposure. It does not appear in the current risk framework. Okay. So what we are trying to say here is that the company should have developed one approach wherein ki something on the lines of sensitivity analysis ki if the readership go if there is a digital disruption and the content and your website is down for one day, what would be the revenue impact or what would be the profit impact? So that will help you to be prepared for all the eventualities. That kind of data is not available, and while you do have KPIs, you have not really defined the key risk indicators. Key, you have not really defined the red flags, and at the review stage that will be very important. Right now, the last aspect is information, communication, and reporting. The current KPIs are tracked. There is an analysis of split between print, digital, and advertising. You are looking at subscriber numbers, website visitors, and energy consumption. But the board has described accounting systems as sufficient rather than strategic. Sufficient means today wherever we are standing, we are more or less aligned with that, we are more or less okay with that, but are we really prepared for the changes that are going to happen in the future? Evidently not. You have not really spoken about real time risk dashboards. You haven't spoken about potentially insufficient digital specific metrics, in the sense that you haven't spoken about key. how many of the original subscribers are still subscribing to the magazines. You might be onboarding new subscribers each month, but customer retention is a parameter that is very important, which it doesn't feel that has happened here. And then of course there is limited integration between financial and non-financial risk data, which again speaks to the fact that a thorough analysis from a risk perspective has not happened right now. ठीक है. Now this is the overall COSO ERM risk maturity assessment. ठीक है, we have discussed these points. एक बार have a look from a strength and a weakness perspective.
Sir,
Hmm.
sir, here this reporting means this will also include the financial reporting, the internal uh, audit reporting and performance review, everything. The reports that are generated like the MIS reports and everything, right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay, okay.
uh, basically, internal MIS plus the information that you give to the shareholders in the
Yeah.
balance sheet. वो जो आपका
Yeah.
narrative commentary होता है
Narrative,
उन सब
yeah,
का भी.
management commentary and so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
My mind is wired only for SBR ना, तो बार बार वही आता है दिमाग में.
Yes.
Now, board level, see, the digital transformation, by the way, has made my life so simple. I only have to give the content, and I can even click pictures of that content, give it here, and Gamma generates the PPT for me. Natural. पहले तो I had to sit down and make. Now, of course, things are very, very easy. ठीक है. This is your risk register. Risk, type, likelihood, impact, overall, likelihood, impact plus overall situation, mitigation. You could also have a column for risk ownership. Whose responsibility is it? ठीक है. Now, very high and high rated risk, then moderate rated risk. I've classified that into different categories. एक बार have a look at the risk register. ठीक है.
Yes, sir, done.
Look at the medium rated risk. पेपर प्राइस इंक्रीज, फॉरेक्स वोलेटिलिटी एंड क्लाइमेट डिसरप्शन. ये सब हमने डिस्कस किया है मल्टीपल टाइम्स. इट्स जस्ट दैट नाउ आई हैव प्रेजेंटेड इट लाइक अ रिस्क रजिस्टर. ठीक है। ओके, नाउ टेल मी व्हाट डज द रिस्क हीट मैप हेल्प यू विथ?
Likelihood of risk that will likelihood of that event occurring,
हम्म।
and also its impact. If like it is a visual mapping where if it is in the red zone, that it is a very high risk, and it's what can I say, that it will if it appears, it will have a very severe impact on the company, and also the likelihood of occurring that risk is also high,
ओके।
and
ना
gradually the color decreases तो मतलब risk categorizes low risk high risk मतलब वैसे
मतलब इट्स लाइक आपका रिस्क रजिस्टर आपने उसको कलर
कलर
कोड
ग्रेड
फॉर्म
कर
में
दिया है।
प्रेजेंट कर दिया। हाई रिस्क मतलब डार्क, डीप रेड, एंड नो रिस्क मतलब वाइट, समथिंग लाइक दिस। एकदम चाइल्डिश नहीं लगता है आपको? मोस्ट ऑफ एसबीएल इट्स सो स्टूपिड। देन टारा रिस्पॉन्स स्ट्रेटजीज: ट्रांसफर, अवॉइड, रिड्यूस, एक्सेप्ट। Transfer is shift the financial impact to a third party through insurance. Avoid is eliminate the risk by discontinuing the activity that creates exposure. Reduce is, implement controls and actions to lower the likelihood or impact. And then accept what you can't change. कुछ भी मत करो, जैसे आपने फॉरेक्स रिस्क को अपने लाइफ में एक्सेप्ट कर लिया है कि ये तो होगा ही होगा, राइट? नाउ द declining print demand is a risk that you are facing. Reduce the dependence on print revenues, go for gradual digital migration. Portfolio rationalization means your dependence on the print revenue. You should slowly and surely try to control that. Then cyber risk, reduce plus transfer. Okay. When I talk about cyber risk, it means, see, your systems are vulnerable to attacks, right? Your data can be stolen. So you could transfer one part of it by going for a cyber insurance, and on the other hand, you could also implement certain something as simple as your क्या बोलते हैं उसको, having a firewall, or these techniques are basically ways of reducing the risk. ठीक है। Regulatory risk you will have to reduce completely by investing more in internal controls, by investing more in editorial reviews, and making sure that you are in compliance with the regulatory code. And platform dependence also is something that you should try to reduce by strengthening direct to consumer subscription channels, and build owned digital properties to reduce reliance on third party algorithms. ठीक है। So direct to consumer means, think about it this way. Today when I'm trying to sell ACCA, okay, if it so happens कि I sell it through Plutus Education का channel, and tomorrow, if I want to go on my own, I don't have the capabilities or the mindset to sell it on my own. But if I have dissociated myself from their advertising platform and I'm trying to push it in my way through LinkedIn and other such platforms, then don't you think that it will help me build success in the long run by reducing the dependence on a well established platform? So, tomorrow, even if I don't have their backing, I can still make sure that I'm reaching out to students. So, that is the platform dependency part. ठीक है। Then real life example, ना आप बोलते हो ना real life case study, see, this is it. Although I shouldn't be talking about it like this. The only hope is nobody from the team watches this part of the video. कौन देखेगा? कोई नहीं देखेगा.
सर कब जा रहे हो सोलो?
We'll talk about it later. We'll have a separate session, pre-scene before the actual launch. And you will be telling me what to do, but not right now. ठीक है। Finance and people related risk, economic downturn. You can't change, say for example, Delhi air pollution. तुम कुछ नहीं कर सकते. You have to accept it to a certain level, and within your house, you can try to reduce it by having an air purifier, for example. ठीक है। When it comes to economic downturn, economy as a whole is going through through a low phase, so you can't do anything about it, but try to build cash reserves, adopt a flexible cost model. ठीक है। Paper cost risk, transfer and reduce, or maybe enter into forwards and futures to lock in the rate at which you can procure. Supplement with commodity hedging instruments, very nice. Loss of key persons, reduce. Implement formal succession planning for crucial editorial and leadership roles. So organizations now, दे हैव अ वेरी स्मार्ट वे ऑफ डूइंग दिस। जैसे मुझे बोलते थे, अरे यू शुड डेवलप योर डेप्यूटी सो दैट यू कैन मूव टू द नेक्स्ट लेवल। आई एम लाइक, नो, यू वांट मी टू बिल्ड माय रिप्लेसमेंट, जस्ट टेल मी। So that's how it works. But for the company, of course, it makes a lot of sense. Looking at some base financial data, see the company's profile reveals high operating leverage driven by substantial fixed cost in printing, distribution, and salary. This is a given, okay? ये दिया है in the sense they have not specifically mentioned कि fixed costs are high, but you know कि you have in-house employees. और आप printing भी in-house करते हो, which means machines are also in-house. So naturally, fixed costs are high. And high fixed cost is source of high operating leverage. If you want to reduce that, maybe you should outsource the printing work. Maybe you should bring in more freelancers and get rid of fixed salary employees, so on and so forth. Okay. Now this is not given anywhere in the pre-scene. Okay. This is just my understanding and उसके basis पे मैंने थोड़ा सा एक extra description दिया है कि in the paper you might have a situation where they are asking you to do sensitivity analysis or scenario impact analysis. So at that time what you should do is you should think about it in this way ki what if the ad revenue declines by 5%, what if the cost of paper increases by so and so percent, what if the digital traffic goes down, what if the print goes down, something like this. And what impact it might have on NPV. Now, here you don't have NPV, but what you have is the future success of the company, right? So when you do sensitivity analysis means change in one factor can lead to how much of a change in the overall profitability, revenues, growth, and success story of the company. अब these numbers are hypothetical numbers which I picked up to show you कि भाई ये ऊपर नीचे हो सकता है. You might get data with respect to that. दिस इज नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ द प्री सीन, अदरवाइज वो प्री सीन में ढूंढते रहोगे आप, कहीं मिलेगा नहीं, फिर आप आपका फेवरेट काम करोगे। व्हाट इज दैट? बताओ। नो नो नो, कॉल करो मुझे, वो प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। इट
इंसुलिन।
बिगिंस विथ पी। व्हाट इज इट दैट यू गाइज लव डूइंग? पैनिक, है ना? हाँ। सर पेपर में क्वेश्चन आया, मेरे को पैनिक हो गया। क्या है? व्हाई डू यू पैनिक सो मच? इट्स ओके। एंड आई हैव, in my opinion, I have basically tried to rank the sensitivity drivers by impact: advertising revenue, digital traffic visibility, print volume, and operating leverage. Now, this is my understanding based on the data. If the data in exhibit is something else, then naturally आपका आंसर उस हिसाब से change होगा, right? So again, what I'm telling you is this is not the only way to look at सेंसिटिविटी, ठीक है? देर आर अदर एस्पेक्ट्स ऑल्सो ऑफ सेंसिटिविटी। माई पॉइंट इज कि आपको मैंने एक डायरेक्शन दे दिया, आई गिव यू अ डायरेक्शन कि यार ऐसे सोचो। अब इसके आगे पेपर में जो सिचुएशन आएगा उसके हिसाब से देन यू हैव टू थिंक, राइट? सो डोंट मेक इट, मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि दिस प्री सीन ऑफ माइन इज लाइक द फाइनल वर्ड ऑन एवरीथिंग कि भाई इसके आगे तो कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता। इट्स नॉट दैट वे। इट्स जस्ट वन वे ऑफ लुकिंग एट थिंग्स। ठीक है? नाउ वी एनालाइज द बोर्ड, वो भी एक हमने एनालिसिस कर लिया कि बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स इट इज बैलेंस्ड एंड यू हैव पीपल फ्रॉम डिफरेंट स्ट्रीम्स एंड फील्ड्स, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ। ठीक है? नाउ after having discussed that, let's have a quick look at the strategic performance. And in strategic performance I'm basically looking at the performance measurement framework. ठीक है? We'll be looking at two aspects, which is one of which is balanced scorecard, and the other one is the building blocks model. ठीक है? Can you tell me, अच्छा, the earlier way of conducting the business was everybody just focused on profitability and cash flows. Now the approach is different. You focus on other aspects also. Can you tell me ये balanced scorecard बनता किस चीज से? What are the components of the balanced scorecard?
Sir, it is of financials, internal, मतलब internal structuring or what kind of internal systems.
Internal
Then there is
processes and systems. Okay.
yeah. Then there is innovation and There is
Customer.
one more.
Customer. Financial,
Customer.
profitability, revenue, ROI, ये सब. Customer, reader retention, advertiser value, brand loyalty. Internal processes front is, how is your each internal process, right from the print mechanism that they have described. उन्होंने printing process भी पूरा describe किया है आपको, है ना? So right from that process to even something as simple as placing an order for a new laptop. All of these come under internal processes followed by learning and growth and innovation वाला जो perspective है, right? Do you offer or does the company offer enough scope for innovation? Right now, the company in the KPIs, in the financial KPIs, I think they have done certain calculations. Digital revenue percentage of total ad revenue, contribution margin by segment, customer lifetime value, return on digital investment. So these are the recommended financial KPIs. That means if you have a look at these, excuse me, one moment. Now, here, see, these are recommended KPIs. Digital revenue as a percentage of total will help you to understand, are you aligned with the digital transformation that the industry is expecting to go through? Ad revenue concentration will tell you ki how much of your revenue is coming from advertisements, and are you still dependent on ad revenues in a major way, or you have been able to bring in more subscribers. Contribution margin by segment will help you to identify underperformers in the portfolio. Basically, having a look at each different magazine, each different category, and वो कितना contribute कर रहा है. In customer lifetime value, how much revenue are you expecting from a certain customer, and return on digital investment. There you could have this classification according to individual customers also, customer categories also. Analyzing the operating leverage, the advertising volatility, the platform dependency will also have a critical impact on the financial success. When we are talking about customer perspective, I think right now because the magazine and the publication has been in the news, has been there for the last 60 years, there is brand legacy. It has positioned itself, as connecting with the local community and niche local audience connections. At the same time, there is a promise that, they don't publish any misinformation. But yes, from a customer's perspective, the challenges remain: low switching cost, free online substitutes, algorithm dependency, and reader churn. ठीक है. And recommended customer KPIs are basically subscriber growth rate and churn rate, uh, website engagement time, how much time do you spend on my website, on my videos. So when I look at my, say for example, I'm looking at my YouTube content. SBL, funnily enough, has always been the best performing content, when in fact the time that I devote to SBL is the least of all. Okay. So when I look at this data, okay, I get a full information on, how exactly has my SBL worked. ठीक है. तो यहाँ पे when I see this information, I get to know कितने views थे, what is the average time spent per video, कितने, how many watch hours कितना बढ़ा मेरा. ठीक है. So all of that information helps me to basically grow my uh, to know कि what does my audience want, and then I can cater to that particular requirement. ठीक है. Then net promoter score and net promoter score is your overall customer satisfaction, and advertiser renewal rate are advertisers coming back to you again and again with content. ठीक है. So that's that. Then from an internal process and learning and growth perspective, see, the success of your print publication will depend on high quality compliant content. If you are in line with that, you can improve your internal editorial processes, make sure that there are no errors in the output that goes in the public domain, make sure that you have tackled cybersecurity threats, you have minimized the legal exposure to your content, and you have made it in the form of a self-driven process in the company, which ensures that these risks are taken care of. From a learning and growth perspective, I think what the company needs to ensure from an innovation perspective also is that they need to build capabilities for long-term digital sustainability, and that resistance to change wala jo scenario hai, they should be able to tackle that. Only then it becomes possible for the company to drive the performance in the right direction, especially in the age of digital disruption. आपके पेपर में digital disruption पे quite a few questions are possible, huh? So be aware about that. The building blocks model is Fitzgerald and Moon's building blocks model. Focuses on determinants and results. Determinants are quality, flexibility, resource utilization, and innovation. These are the buttons or the levers that impact the result. And the result is basically what is the organization achieving. Okay. When it comes to financial performance and competitiveness, revenue growth remains positive with a strong 27% operating margin and solid profitability. A significant risk arises from structural decline of print, a trend that threatens the very foundation of Mersey's current revenue model. The company has in the past relied on print media, and with those revenues declining, that might have a long-term impact on the financial performance. The company also has the kind of content or the kind of business that the company is in. They also have they are facing this situation where the company has competition from free content that is posted online, from other digital platforms, and from new entrants into the digital publishing space, because the barriers to entry are pretty low. Okay. And what are the four determinants of performance? Quality, flexibility, resource utilization, and innovation. Okay. Have a look once. ठीक है. चलो. So this was the building blocks model, and we have done, थोड़ा एक performance metrics के हिसाब से we have done one small analysis on that front. We did look at, the ESG part of it, how the company's focus on environmental, social, and governance aspects is critical. And at the very beginning, we did look at, uh, the entire industry analysis कर लिया, फिर company specific analysis कर लिया. So we have looked at all those aspects. Right now, हमने what we have done is from the typical perspectives that can be tested in the paper. ठीक है. एक रिस्क कमिटी हो गया, स्ट्रेटेजिक परफॉर्मेंस हो गया, रिस्क रजिस्टर हो गया. सो वी हैव लुक्ड एट इट फ्रॉम ऑल ऑफ दोज एस्पेक्ट्स. नाउ एक ESG perspective से if we set down कि what is the company doing on the ESG front, let's have a quick analysis of that also, because the company has said that it really matters for the company to stay on top of that. Right now, for building brand trust, for subscriber retention, for institutional support, and from a regulatory scrutiny perspective, I think it is necessary that the company continues to operate in a manner which is strategically more inclined, which is strategically more focused on fulfilling the environmental, social, and governance aspects of your business. ठीक है. Paper might become the fact that your industry relies heavily on paper, at least in the print domain, might end up spreading negative publicity about the company later, because this entire woke janta, vegan janta, that you have today. See, paper has got nothing to do with vegan, but the mindset that I'm talking about. They will boycott your magazine because you are using print. So वो हो सकता है, right? The energy consumption, because when you're operating the print business, the energy consumption tends to be pretty high. So that part does play a critical role, and the climate risk, which has a potential to disrupt the supply chain and distribution network. Uh, right now, the company it has made a very public declaration that it wants to remain aligned with environmental protection, but you don't see too many measures being implemented by the company on that perspective. And your institutional investors are ESG focused, and they comprise 60% of the ownership base. ठीक है. Social capital and human risk, which is the S of ESG. ठीक है. यहाँ पे companies content integrity, the very fact that company is saying we will not promote any false content, or we will not put out any information that is not verified. This is the claim that the company is making. If at all this is violated in some place, again the company's reputation will suffer. Company says that it has commitment to diversity and basically having an inclusive workforce, but there is hybrid working, and it might create problems when it comes to coordination. A freelance heavy model may dilute cultural integration and community positioning. Authors and readers as one community builds social loyalty and subscriber retention, but requires genuine engagement mechanisms and measurable stakeholder dialogues. So, what we are saying here is, how does the company position itself as the link between the two, and how does it keep on, engaging with the audience, the writers, and the readers, so as to keep the community active? It's like, me building a WhatsApp community. सिर्फ community बना के नहीं छोड़े. It's not enough, right? I have to keep on posting relevant content there at all times. From a governance perspective, we analyzed this in detail when we were looking at corporate governance aspects. Board independence, committee structure, regulatory compliance are things that work in your favor. But too much concentration in the hands of institutional shareholders and directors, the ESG integration gap, and the fact that risk appetite is not clearly defined could be generic risk statements that might not. Matlab, it basically makes the whole approach quite vague. So that is from the ESG perspective. Okay. With that, we are through with analyzing the pre-scene and applying different models. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is go through the material ones. The models that we have described, go through the models here. Maybe if you want, you can refer these on the study hub. As your second mock, I want you to do the NC Tech का question that is there in the exam kit. ठीक है. NC Tech करके एक past exam question है. Treat that as your second mock, solve it and send it to me for review. ठीक है. People whose mock one reviews have not been sent, I will send those today. I think around 14, 15, I got some 18 to 20 submissions. 15 marks I think I have sent. 3, 4 marks are left. Those I will send today. NC Tech solve karo and send it to me. And by tomorrow, I will give you a mock, which ideally I shouldn't give you based on the pre-scene. But I will just try to help you with some basic question structure so that you can attempt those questions. Works?